People of color in this country have been time and time again displaced from land and removed from that connection with nature.
We're known as a place that preserves like the culture of Puerto Rico and speaks about social justice with the youth that we serve and through the work that we do.
We try to connect them with the music, we try to connect them with the language, we try to connect them with the food.
The key to health is through a lot of these natural practices that we've been losing and forgetting. The more and more we can connect to what keeps us independent, what keeps us self-sufficient, what keeps us connected to our culture, and being able to provide for ourselves is super important. The simple act of planting a seed and eating that food is tremendously liberating.
Norris Square Neighborhood Project, it's a bilingual community center in West Kensington in North Philadelphia. It's existed since 1973. It was founded by a teacher, a professor, and a group of Puerto Rican women activists named Grupo Motivos, who were trying to create a safe space for youth in the neighborhood to learn about their culture and the environment in a culturally grounded way.
These ladies will incorporate themselves with the kids, and they will teach them how to cook. They will teach them how to do sofrito and teach them how to listen to the music, the kind of bomba plena. They will teach them how to make different types of clothing and fabrics and paintings.
Folks were going to schools and then they weren't learning anything about Puerto Rican culture, and they were not learning about Puerto Rican food or any of those things. There was this disconnect between their culture at home and their culture in school and in other settings. The way that our gardens were created by Iris and Tomasita and the women of Grupo Motivos was through struggle, taking back the land, creating these spaces for healing. Because a lot of the reason our gardens exist is because there was a federal raid in this community where over 60 community residents were arrested. These folks were involved with the drug trade, but these were fathers and cousins and family members and mothers. And so this was a great community trauma. And so all of our gardens come out of that trauma because it was a way of creating a space to heal and reflect. The way that we do programming is that we are always inclusive of youth ideas and the way that youth want to incorporate things within the project-based learning that we do. And so that's just one way we try to develop youth leadership, because ultimately the way that social services and community services and things like that are structured is it's very folks from the community are serviced at or are the recipients of services, and they are not the people who are delivering services and doing things within their own community.
A lot of times, we see the environment movement, it's very white, and so you see environmental movements trying to then diversify and reach out to communities of color and see how they can get buy-in, which is totally different than a community group based in a community of color, engaging or realizing ties to the environmental struggle.
We started a program that we had piloted last summer called Raíces de Cambio, or Roots of Change. It's a youth farm apprenticeship program that's based on the idea of cultural preservation, youth power, and food justice. So in each cohort of Raíces de Cambio, which usually lasts about a quarter of the year, 3 months or so, we have a core of 8 youth who learn about urban gardening. They become peer educators for the other youth in our other program about food justice and preparing food in a healthy way while still doing cultural foods and stuff like that. So the garden that we're sitting in right now is called Las Parcelas. It was started to get built in, I believe, 1984, and it was completed in 1998. It's a community garden with over 20 garden plots for community residents. This community is always changing, so we have Palestinian garden members, Puerto Rican garden members, Korean garden members, all growing food together and finding ways that the foods that they grow within their cultures have crossover with Puerto Rican culture. Iris likes to talk a lot about the idea of tertulias, the idea of sharing food and culture, and you'll bring beans and you'll bring rice and you'll bring other things, and we'll cook together and we'll connect and we'll bond and we'll get to know each other and build community together. Within the space we have the casita.
Oh my Lord, when I walked into that little casita, I felt like I was walking into my grandmom's house. Seriously, because as soon as you walk in, there's this little salita with the rocking chair, with the percha, their little clothes, the moquitero on the bed, la friambrera where they used to put lunches at, el guiro, la guitarra, the sink in the outside. I don't know if you guys have seen that some houses in Puerto Rico used to have their sinks outside the window. So this casita has the sink outside. So they also built on the other side of the gardens, El Colobos, these three African huts with their African stories.
It is a garden that celebrates the African diaspora in Puerto Rican culture. Iris Brown, who created the gardens, is from Loíza, where the culture of the folks there is like very like Afro-Caribbean. It's where a lot of the culture of Puerto Rico comes from. And so she wanted to create a space that like talks about that, because often in Puerto Rican culture we don't talk about how the African roots of like many Puerto Rican people in a way that's like strengthening as opposed to like not strengthening, essentially. So Raíces Garden was established in 1980. It is a garden that explores Puerto Rican history. It has a large mural that showcases everything from the indigenous Taino, the first people of Puerto Rico, to the enslaved Africans that when they were first brought there, the Spanish conquistadors, all of those things, as well as like various like aspects of Puerto Rican culture. Of the kids that we serve, the majority, like 60%, are Puerto Rican, I would say, or Latino. Like we serve some folks who are like newcomer immigrant youth from like Central and South America. When you immigrate to the United States, and Puerto Ricans are immigrants in a lot of ways, even though it's like a part of the United States. You have to fight to preserve your culture and the culture for your kids.
All of our cultures came from interactions with the earth, right? So like holidays, traditions, the foods that we eat, all connects to some earth-based, whether you're from East Africa, Western Europe, Chile, far Southern America, like across the world, we come from the earth.
Generally, it's like we try to be as open as we possibly can, and we want to start doing something where like folks on the block can be like garden members, but like in a different way that doesn't have community beds, but just so that it's like free for them, and also so that they like have more buy-in with the spaces. I think that overall, like we have a positive reputation within the community.